What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Believe in Falcons. I'm your host, Will McFadden, joined, as always, by former Falcons fullback Ovie Mughelli. Ovie, you've got a good week to look forward to, and hopefully that starts on Sunday with a win. Let our people know why.
I am really excited for the Falcons to make good on this promise that they've made to us that this is going to be an exciting season, because they gave us, we thought their whole rebuilding thing was all we could expect, but after seeing a little bit of life, we're like, maybe there's more to this team, and this would really solidify the whole there's more to this team, because I'm sorry, I'm looking at Detroit as a win, and being able to come to the Saints as the last game, be a pivotal one to get us somewhere great. It all starts with beating the 49ers. And this is one of the above average teams that it's not a guarantee we win, but we absolutely should be able to compete with. So I gotta, I'm home alone right now, like the dang movie. My whole family's in California. So I'm going to be like eating ramen and, eating donuts and,
They go into the game without you?
Yeah, just relaxing, chilling. Yeah, they went to the 49ers game. They didn't bring me. But I have all the time in the world to talk about football and to watch the Falcons and to make sure good things happen.
All right, cool. So you're up for a solo pod on Sunday after the game? I can just chill out
Yep.
and
Yep, I'm free. I ain't got nothing to do.
Oh, heck yeah. Before we dive into this matchup, like you said, I mean, a lot for us to talk about with this game, because I think the trend of this season for us has been seeing what this team kind of is and getting better against the bad teams, against, I guess, their peers in this league. But we're still hoping and waiting for them to kind of make progress against one of these good teams. And I came across an article in 538 yesterday. I tweeted it out, so if anybody wants to check it out, just go to my Twitter account. But it was written by Ty Shelter, and the headline is, "Are the Falcons the best bad team ever?" And
I saw that one.
Yeah, and it kind of goes to what I was talking about last week, where if you look at their point differential so far this year, it's minus 108. And I think that they are like the only team in the league right now sniffing the playoffs with that bad of a point margin. And the point of the piece is they're one of the worst teams ever in terms of the point margin to be in the playoff race this far late in the season. I mean, is that a positive for the Falcons, or is that a negative for the Falcons? I mean, they're finding ways to win these games, but again, they're getting crushed in the games that they're kind of not expected to be in, and they're just eking out some of these wins. But as we say, like, a bad win is better than a good loss at the end of the day. And I mean, that's all that matters, is they're 6-7. But I mean, how do you even make sense of that?
Yeah. It's understanding the context of the situation. Obviously, looking at the overall picture and realizing that with our cap situation, with our new coach, with our new system, the fact that we are still being competitive with such a horrendous number. I didn't know we were that bad when it comes to point differential and across the board. We always know our defense. I don't even know how we can compete with a dead last, pass rushing attack and, pretty much last defense year after year. How we're competing is just beyond me, but I'll take it. I'll absolutely take it. So I didn't get a chance to read that whole article. I just saw the title and skimmed through it, but they're absolutely right. We're the best bad team ever. And if we can eke out wins with this bad play, imagine when we actually get more talent and more experience and more comfortable with the scheme and situation and personnel and coaches. I'm excited. Like, there's lots of room to have some optimism if you're a Falcons fan, which is great. It's a weird place to be in.
There definitely is. I mean, and that's why this weekend is so big. But you remember that 2010 season when the NFC West just had, like, every team was so bad out there, and they all, like, I think the Seahawks finished something like 7-9 that year and went into the playoffs, but it was like the first time a team with a losing record went, and I think they actually knocked off the Saints. I think that's the Beastquake game. But the Falcons would potentially surpass them if they can get to 8 and 9 and make the playoffs or even 9-8, I guess, as the playoff team in NFL history with probably the lowest point differential to that point. So, Falcons on the verge of making history, not the kind of history you want to make, but sure,
Yeah,
it's what's more fitting for Atlanta than to be the best bad team ever.
History, yeah. That's so
and that's the theme of this season, right? They've just beaten all the bad teams, so they can claim the crown of we're just the best bad team. Like we look at the head-to-heads, look at the whatever, like we are the bad team kings of 2021. So let's get into a much more kind of compelling and real game this weekend right after this. All right, so Ovie, I'll let you take this right off the bat, just in any direction that you want to take this, because I think that these two teams in a lot of ways are kind of similar. We talked about how the Falcons are still able to win some of these games despite all of the things that kind of they have going against them. And I think that's because they are well coached. They kind of emphasize the right things. They play to the game that's in front of them, not necessarily to the one that they thought they were going to be in. They make those in-game changes to say like, okay, well, this is going to be this type of game, so we need to adjust accordingly. I think the 49ers, by and large, have done that well this season. And we're starting to see them hit their stride with a big win against the Bengals. I know the Bengals kind of started to come back in that game. San Francisco still held on. So you let us know where do we want to start when looking at this San Francisco team and how they match up with the Falcons?
Well, it's got to be with the Cordarrelle Patterson Deebo showdown that we're all looking forward to, and that we're all going to have the ability to see on display, because these two dynamic individuals are going to be the focal points for both opposing defenses. Because if you don't stop them, and all due respect to Kyle Pitts, he's still a child compared to 30-year-old Cordarrelle Patterson, who is now coming into his own and breaking all types of personal records. And Deebo Samuel, he's been watching Cordarrelle Patterson from afar, saying, "All right, I see you. I'm going to raise you. I can catch balls, run balls, and then do this and do some end arounds. He might even throw a pass. Who knows?" But I just realized that it's going to be a nightmare for both defenses to try and stop the opposing all-purpose athletes on the other side. And whoever does a better job, Dean Pease or the DC for the 49ers, is the one who's probably going to win this game.
I mean, it's no secret that this game is going to be a really interesting one from an offensive perspective, for sure, because of who both head coaches are. I mean, they've been one of kind of the more creative, but not necessarily creative in like the Sean Payton, Joe Brady, Joe Lombardi, like the air it out type of thing. I think what really makes both of these offenses run is literally the run game. And that is where everything stems from. These are two of the better offensive coaches, I think, the last decade of kind of marrying their runs to their passes to really benefit their offensive line. I mean, what Kyle Shanahan has historically been able to do with offensive linemen, they immediately get better when he kind of comes to town. Same with the running game. A lot of that, Bobby Turner is involved, and like they've been married there together forever, and it's proven to work out. But we're seeing now Atlanta's run game really get going, and both of these teams get a lot of different people involved in making that run game happen. You mentioned Deebo Samuel. I mean, he scored a rushing touchdown last week, actually finished with 37 rushing yards, 22 receiving yards, only caught one pass in that game. But over the course of the season, no doubt he has been kind of their MVP. Another guy who really could be dangerous for Atlanta in this game. And last couple of seasons, he was hurt all of last year. This year, been hurt up and down. George Kittle, 13 catches, 151 yards and a touchdown last week. Monster game. I mean, at various points, he looked like Rob Gronkowski. He looked like Tony Gonzalez. He looked like Darren Waller. I mean, he looked like any type of tight end you needed him to be. He's a freak. So he's my biggest concern. If we're going to look at, I know Deebo Samuel, like he's got it. To me, this is a little bit of like you got to let one of them beat you, like pick your poison. I think that I think that just the Falcons are set up a little bit better to defend somebody like Deebo Samuel because I trust AJ Terrell out there on the perimeter to lock him down maybe more as a receiver, but the speed that you have at linebacker, I think can neutralize some of those reverses, those end arounds. Like we haven't seen teams really try the Falcons a ton on the edge this year because they just have that speed. George Kittle right up the middle, like it just kind of running the other tight ends have been effective against Atlanta this season. If you kind of look back over the stats, it'll be, Foye and Dion usually have their work cut out for them because teams are just going to throw the ball to the tight end 9-10 times in the game. And I mean, why wouldn't they do the same with George Kittle here?
Yeah, they absolutely will do the same with George Kittle. Kyle Juszczyk, their wonderful fullback, and one of the best representations of our breed, of our brand, our ilk, if you may. He was talking about George Kittle and Deebo Samuels as just part of the reputation or part of the kind of the mindset that their players have, which is they're all going to be multifunctional. They're all going to be individuals that Kyle Shanahan can play with and move around. Like Kittle says, he's more of an H-back. And he says the same thing about Juszczyk. He can come into the I formation. Both of them can shift out of different formations to kind of throw off the defense. And I feel like they all have that athletic ability to where they're dangerous. And like you mentioned with Kittle, he has such an ability to stretch the field, not like Deebo Samuels, but to do it in a way where it's in the middle of the field and these linebackers they have a bunch of speed, but they can't go omnidirectional.
Yeah. He gets like instant. A two-way go. He's so good at he'll like split the middle of the field and then he's so quick out of his breath. Like he is, I think people, because he is so good at blocking, people kind of think of him as like he's one of the most athletic tight ends in the league right now. And so you get him man coverage against a linebacker or like zone against a safety. They don't necessarily know where he's going to be. The offense does, but it's like it's a really, really hard, I think, matchup for all of those reasons. But continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I just I read a bit on what Kyle was saying about his teammates, and his praise for Kittle and Deebo were great, but it's all kind of just surrounding the athletic ability they all have that allows Kyle Shanahan to work his magic. And, we still have words with Kyle Shanahan. We still have feel a certain type of way when he took his talents elsewhere and, we
didn't exercise those demons in 2019.
We kind of did, but I just feel like we would like to beat him a little bit more than the rest of the coaches, because, several reasons. Some of them because that Super Bowl we should have won. He was the OC, and he probably had a lot to say. Head coach could have overruled him about the whole not running the ball. So, Kyle Shanahan, he's an interesting one. Personality. He did a lot for the city and for the team when we were here, but he didn't get us what we wanted. So now beating him feels extra good. So we have the tools to do it. We definitely can. I feel like with DMPs, I won't say outsmart him, but do enough to where we give Matt the ability to do his thing and win in a close game. Because I'd rather put the ball in Matt's hand any day of the week. And now that we have a competent running game and one with my boy Mike Davis, who had a chance to talk to and meet in person at the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award last week, I just feel like he gives CP that extra dimension. He gives our run game that extra dimension, and now it's a really authentic 1-2 punch. So with that and Matt Ryan feeling comfortable, that's not a full passing game, and our defense, I think having the tools to not shut down but slow down their weapons, we can win this, man. We can win this, Will. I feel good.
I do too as well, because I think that this could really unfold in the type of game that Atlanta has got a lot of experience playing this year, and B, has shown the ability to win kind of these like 24-21 fourth quarter games that, like, maybe there's each team has a turnover, there's some penalties, there's a couple sacks on either side. It's not the prettiest game. It's a little bit of a messy, muddy, like dogfight scratching and clawing, but that's what games are in December in the NFL, especially amongst two teams fighting for a playoff spot. It's not always going to be clean. It's not always going to be perfect, but I think the result of that will be less mental mistakes, less sloppiness, like you would see earlier in the season when it's more of a team hurting itself because they're just not maybe clicking on all gears. That shouldn't be the case now. I mean, it's week, 14, 15? Like, you should understand what you are. We've seen the Falcons, their run game's perfect example. I think some of what they've been able to do, tweaking their defensive line. I know the pressure hasn't been there, but I think the three levels of the defense are all playing pretty in sync by and large. Like, we're not seeing any big busted plays. When was the last time you remember a big explosive play against this? Maybe I shouldn't bring that up right after Tampa Bay threw it all over the yard against them. So, but you get my point. This is going to be more, I think, an ugly game because both teams make plays that force the other team to look ugly. It's going to be more of a team plays well, better than the other team at times. It's just who can play well more consistently. And that's where I want to bring this to the quarterback position, because we've talked a lot about the run games. Yes, both of these teams, I think, are defined more by their run games than their passing games. But Matt Ryan is still a quarterback that his stats have not been amazing this year outside of that kind of 5-game stretch kind of earlier on in the season. But I think if you watch him play to play, he is playing as well within the confines of what this offense is trying to be, I think, as anybody could have expected. It looks like he's in clear command. He's still making the small plays. It's just a different type of offense than the one Dirk Cutter. That one was designed to get explosive big plays down the field. Matt benefited from it, but it also would leave you vulnerable at times. And this one is a much more slow, methodical. We're gonna take what they're gonna give us, inch our way down the field, string together. If we can string together 3 12-play drives in a game, that's 21 points. You expect maybe Youngway to tack on a couple there. 27 points, I mean, that should win you most games. That's kind of the way that this team wants to play on offense. And Matt Ryan is doing really well. There's one key stat defensively for San Francisco that stands out. They are second in the league in points per play defensively, meaning they give up the second most yards per play, but they're 14th in yards per game. I kind of like that for the Falcons because I think that sets up what this could be is, again, run the ball, set that up, let Matt Ryan take his shots. And I think that this is going to be a good classic Matt Ryan game. Big stakes. Last time he's kind of been in one of these big games. And so how do you like this Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo dynamic?
I like the Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo dynamic in our favor if our offensive line can repeat the performance they had against the Panthers, because
good point.
0 sacks, if I'm correct, last week.
Yes.
They snuck one in when I was at the bathroom break. They did an amazing job against a defensive line that's known for sacking. They were, middle of the road, darn near above average when it came to pressure, but they got none against us. Now with Bosa and Eric Armstead and the fact that this is another team that is, average at worst when it comes to rushing the passer, we got to have that similar performance where we protect our guy. There were a couple games span where it was just atrocious. Matt, I think still, even though we've gotten better, he still might be leading the league in knockdowns, hurries, sacks, all those categories. And that's just so frustrating when we know about this year after year. We fail to fix it. Just kind of how it's frustrating that, our defensive back situation or defense as a whole is so bad. But with Matt, I feel like if we protect him, he'll protect us. He'll give us a old school Matt Ryan performance. And I think running the ball is going to help as well, keep their defensive pass rush to a minimum and keep them back on their toes. And we, again, with the Mike Davis performance and his kind of emergence as more than just a spot back, but somebody who can truly be a key part and an effective part of this 1-2 run game punch that I think every team needs. We got everything lined up. Like, the stars are aligning for us. Matt Ryan is hungry. He knows how to win these tough games. He still has that fire, an elite passion for competition. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. If we give him the tools,
Yeah.
give him the protection, and give him a run game, Matt Ryan, the MVP 2016 Matt Ryan, is who's still in that body. He's still in that mind.
Yeah.
He still has that ability, and we just got to give him the parameters to let it show, or let it really I think shine. So I'm Matt Ryan over Jimmy Garoppolo any day. I mean, when you have a guy who is already aware that he's out, like Garoppolo knows this is it. They got a guy to replace me. He needs some time, but I'm not going to be here next year. And so he's auditioning for his next team, and that's motivation in itself. But he also knows that this team doesn't want me. I'm not good enough to be a 49er moving forward. But Matt knows that not just his contract, but as long as he is Matt Ryan, he's not going anywhere. As much as the fans say it, as much as talking heads like us say it, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's going to have a statue in Atlanta at some point. He's going to be somebody who's going to be up in the rafters, and he's a above average quarterback that gives us the ability to win at that position every single game.
Completely agree, and there's really not much more I think I need to add to that, because you touched on everything. And yes, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Like he still overcomes a lot for an offense. I mean, everything he's able to do pre-snap, identify the stuff, get guys like just watch him before any snap. He's the conductor of everything. And I mean, game manager has always been a weird term to me, in that why do people see it as a negative light? Like, that's exactly what I want I want somebody I trust to manage this game. And that sometimes that means dinking and dunking. Sometimes it means taking deep shots. I trust Matt Ryan to know when to do each. And that is what I want, is somebody who's going to manage my game for me. Is like, all right, when do we need you to take a big shot? When do we need you to start pushing it? When do we need you to play it safe and run out the clock or do these little things? That's Matt Ryan to me. He can still make every throw. He's just a professional ass quarterback behind behind center running your offense. And so, yeah, for that reason, I mean, I am bullish on the Falcons. Let's quickly flip and talk about the defenses. You touched on San Francisco's pass rush, Nick Bosa, pardon me. I always mix those two guys up.
Yeah,
Don't be named Joey and Nick and both live out in California. Come on, guys. So Nick Bosa, 14 sacks, 18 tackles for a loss this season. He's been playing as well as he always does. But then they've got the rest of their kind of pass rush. Most sacks behind Nick Bosa is Arden Key with 4. But then Eric Armstead 3, D Ford 3. So it has been primarily Nick Bosa. Again, for the same reason I liked that matchup a little bit more for Atlanta's offensive line. Caleb McGarry's been playing pretty well the past couple of weeks. I think Jake Matthews, consistent as always. You know what you're going to go, Jake. I like those guys dealing with Nick Bosa a little bit more than a Jalen Mayfield or a Drew Dahlman or a Matt Hennessy. That doesn't mean San Francisco can't find ways to get him on those guys. But who for San Francisco's defense really stands out to you? I mean, a couple players, Fred Warner, Jimmy Ward at corner, Jaquiski Tart. Who scares you for Atlanta if you're looking at this matchup?
DJ Jones and his ability to limit the run can really be a thorn in our side, because that is a key piece for our offense working. If we can't duplicate what happened last week, and we can't get Cordarrelle Patterson and Mike Davis getting chunk yardage, make sure we stay ahead of the sticks, 3 yards here, 4 yards here, 4 yards there, first down, it's going to be a problem. So if DJ Jones gets disruptive and starts to get in the backfield and starts making these shoestring tackles, it's going to be a waterfall effect to where we're putting Matt Ryan in situations where he has to force the ball in, and we're second and long trying to catch up to the sticks, and everything just falls apart. 3 downs come and go really fast if you have somebody who disrupts your whole momentum and your flow and your timing, which he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great point, because I do think that a lot of people overlook players like DJ Jones because of somebody like Nick Bosa, because it's easy to see, all right, who's that white blur making a sack in the backfield? And you don't necessarily pay attention to the 2nd and 6 stop in the backfield that now suddenly it's 3rd and 11. And it's like, that's a drive killer. Just like any penalty,
exactly.
a play in the backfield is a drive killer. And again, for offenses like Atlanta, like San Francisco, you're trying to string together a 12, 13 play drive. You can't have drive killers. Drive killers are essentially turnovers at that point. So I love that point. I 100% co-sign. Looking at Atlanta's defense, let's talk about Eric Harris's absence a little bit. Obviously, he's done for the year, pec injury. Going into the season, we had no idea what to make of the safety group in Atlanta. Obviously, a huge turnover from last year, from really the past several years. Monte Casey gone, Ricardo Allen, Keanu Neal, all those guys out. In come Daron Harmon, Eric Harris, Jalen Hawkins still there. They draft Richie Grant. Who do you expect more between Richie Grant, who also kind of got dinged up, left with his own injury? We're still waiting to see if he'll be available. If he's not, obviously that answers this question for me. But who would you like to see more out there if both Richie Grant and Jalen Hawkins are healthy, good to go in this matchup? Is there one that you like a little bit more against San Francisco or trust a little bit more? How do you see those two guys?
I would like Harmon to step up his role, because he's shown us enough flashes to where we know that he can be a good player. It's just about
just play with 10 guys out there on defense and ask him to be two safeties.
I mean, I would try.
I get what you're saying.
Use cloning. I mean, it's just a thing to where if every player could play at their best, we would be an amazing team. But doesn't happen. It's unfortunately unrealistic. And you need players to be consistent. And those are the ones you can trust, the ones that may not have all the talent in the world, but they're going to be, especially on defense, where you expect them to be. And they're going to be reliable, so that when you're saying, all right, I'm taking this guy, you know that you're not going to be leaving a whole section of the field open, because he's going to do his job. And when things do fall apart, as they sometimes do with the scramble drill, or you got to be able to understand what my teammate is thinking, what we've done in practice. All right, he's probably going to go this way, I'm going to go that way. And that hasn't happened as much as I'd like to see with the Falcons, whether it's an individual thing or a collective thing or a coacher thing or just a meshing thing. I'd love for us to get better across the board. You know, I wish we can kind of clone AJ Terrell and put him at safety and corner and everything else, but that's not quite possible yet.
It's a wonderful point, and it's kind of something that I think I've been thinking in the back of my mind throughout this year. I just haven't been able to put my finger on it as eloquently as you just did. But, you know, one of the reasons why I think a lot of people were looking at Richie Grant early on in the season and being like, this is our second round pick, why is he not even sniffing the field outside of special teams? You're seeing this coaching staff especially say, it doesn't necessarily matter that we have our 11 best guys out there on the field. It's the 11 guys we trust the most to execute the game plan for the team as the whole. And I did notice with Richie Grant especially, and you know, I'm not trying to single him out, it's just something I noticed as a rookie, because he can make some of these like splashy plays, but when his job is to be the edge defender and to be the force defender to push everything back inside, and then you see him try to dip under a block that gives up the edge and allows a big run to happen because he didn't do his job. Your job is not to make the tackle. Your job is to funnel it back into the guys who will make the tackle. And yeah, that may give up 3 more yards, but it's not going to give up 30 yards. Those are the types of plays that you need to trust your players to make before you put them on the field consistently for 55, 60 snaps. I think now we're seeing the point of the year where it is clicking for some of these younger guys. And so that then allows you, when you lose a safety like Eric Harris, who may not make those splashy plays, and I kind of take issue with what I've seen from him this year, but he's at least in the position to make the play. And that's kind of step one. It's what we saw AJ Terrell do last year. Now he's just making the plays and finishing. So the loss of Eric Harris will be big, especially because he would probably have been somebody they would have looked at to cover George Kittle. I don't know if that would have been the best decision, but it's one option who's now off the board. Let's kind of wrap up this conversation with some final thoughts, predictions right after this. All right, Ovie. Is there any part of this conversation? Let's talk about the head coaches real quick. Few thoughts on where should Arthur Smith's head be at, and what does he need to say to this team to get them ready for this game, or does he need to, because this is their game? I mean, we talk about must-win games in week 3. That's all bullshit. That doesn't mean anything in week 3.
Yeah,
but like we have to say it because it's like content. This is probably the must-win game of the Falcons season. They win this game, there's a better than not chance, I think, that then they can actually make something of this season and squeak in. If they lose, I think everything's kaput. What does Arthur Smith need to say?
Yeah, this is a must-win game. I mean, every game except for the Bills is a must-win. You must win the games that you can win, and this is a winnable game. Not that the Bills is not, but
it's also an AFC game, so it's like it's I gotcha. Yeah,
not as important, and not as probable as we can beat the Bills versus beat the 49ers, because they have issues like we have. They're a nice little mirror of us. They're not perfect. They have a lot to be desired in certain areas, and so as a coach, the team should already be geeked up and excited and amped up and realize everything. But it's your job to frame things and not assume. You make an ass out of yourself and me when you assume, and coaches cannot do that because we don't have the tenure, the veterans, the experience, the breadth of talents. We have, I think, a lot of good guys, and again, going to the Walter Payton Award at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which was a wonderful experience, and get a chance to see Terry Fontenot, meet him in person for the first time. Real cool brother.
He's impressive.
Really excited. Oh my gosh, really excited about what he's doing with the team, and all the stuff he says on his press conferences. It's palpable. You can feel his excitement. You can feel the fact that he's not playing around. Like, he's going to make us into a Super Bowl contender, if he has to drag us there kicking and screaming. But seeing some of the current players and understanding more just from talking to Terry and some of the other staff about the temperament in the locker room, the kind of the feel around the facility. These guys aren't here to just play the rest of the games and go home. Like, they want to really cultivate a winning culture, and they want to really change the way that people look at the Falcons and that we look at ourselves. And to do that, it's about winning big games like this. I mean, to do that, it's about understanding how to step up in the situations. I think, I don't know, it was Dion or somebody, big time players that make big time plays in big time games. That's where we're at. And I know this is not the Super Bowl, but this is our moment.
Yeah,
and
as close as they've been since 2017.
Yeah, thank you. This is our time to really shine. And so I think Arthur Smith is going to have some sort of speech. Hopefully his speeches to his team is a little more passion than his press conferences, because he's not showing that much emotion, and he frankly needs to show emotion. He as a player, I want my coach to show some emotion when it's just us as a family. I mean, whether it's your style or not, you don't got to dog cuss everybody, but you got to be able to let me feel you when you talk about how much it means to you to win this game, how much it should mean to us to win this game. Go over the preparation, go over, doing your job, go over, the note taking on watching film. But what's most important is the execution of all of this. Because I've seen the best coaches in getting people prepared, but when it comes time to execute, they fall flat in exciting their core, their base, because it's as you're as good as your worst player. It takes one bad player, not dialed in, not focused, to have that offsides penalty, to have that flag come out, to not be lined up on special teams. This is the worst. Not be in the game, 12 guys on the field or 10 guys on the field, or you're holding on a penalty, especially his play, because you're not dialed in. So as a coach, you got to make sure everybody to the last man understands how important this game is and goes out there and does their best to win it.
But even especially this week, if Arthur Smith for some reason doesn't have that in him, and I have no idea if he does or not, and I never will, but if there's one week ever that I would like to see Matt Ryan stand in front of this locker room,
Yeah,
that I would
true.
like to see Grady Jarrett stand in front of this locker room, that I would like to see Jake Matthews, guys who have reached that mountaintop and have had to deal with the slog of the last 3 seasons when it is December 17th and you notice the cars are leaving the parking lot a little bit earlier each day because it doesn't matter anymore because the season is over and it's been over for a little while. The season is not over. You've got a big game. This game matters now, and they've played well late. They've done the Kansas City almost beat them in week 16. They've done the San Francisco actually beat them in week 14. None of those games actually mattered, and yet the Falcons still mustered enough professionalism, drive, fortitude, whatever, to have a good week of practice, come out and perform and beat a team for a game that didn't really matter. Sure, it made you feel good, but this one does matter. So if they could do it then, they need to witness or see this opportunity in front of them and not let it slip by. And that is where nobody's better to drive home that message than the players who have worked their asses off, achieved success, and know how rare an opportunity like this really is, and impart that upon the younger players to make sure that they're ready to go and reinforce Arthur Smith's message. Whether that comes from the coach or the quarterback, doesn't matter to me. Somebody needs to say it. All right, Ovie, final thought or final prediction. What do you got for us?
Oh man, I feel like it's going to be an offensive race. We really got to score every time we have the football because they're going to be scoring a lot too. They have a lot of great weapons. I'm actually going to go with the 35-28 Falcons.
All right. I like it. I don't know if the scoring is going to be necessarily that high. I think I'm going to lean like the 26-24 range. But I'm going to say Atlanta as well, which is scary. I don't like that we both picked the Falcons, but I just think they finally get it done. I think, this is down to the fourth quarter. I would be shocked if they do get blown out, even though Vegas kind of expects that. I think the 49ers are like 8-point favorites or something. Yeah, it's like an 8.5 point line or 9 even maybe. So that's crazy, but can't argue with the Falcons either play these close games or they've gotten blown out this year. So, I mean, I get it. I get where they're coming from. I just don't agree. All right, man. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Today's podcast brought to you, as always, by Bet Online. Follow us on Twitter at Ovie Mughelli 34, at Will McFadden, and let everybody know where they can find us. It'll be Monday morning, talking about hopefully a win. Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, take care.